Now, George Reninger is not a stranger to many of you on this call. George and I have toured across Africa. We've stayed in hotel rooms on the road. We've traveled by road with armed security guards leading the way from Abuja to Magurdi. And we have been from the north to the south. We've been to Kaduna, Kano, Abuja, Jos,
Calabar.
Calabar, Port Harcourt, Enugu, Owerri, and Warri, Benin City, Ibadan. We have been all across Africa, and we have a love and appreciation for the people of Nigeria. And, you know, I really believe this. I don't just say it. I really believe that God put entrepreneurship and business in the DNA of Nigerians. Everybody in Nigeria wants a business. No matter who I talk to, everybody wants to be in business for themselves. And so George has traveled across that great nation. He has spoken to very influential people in Nigeria. He'll probably show you some of his photos. We have spoken to thousands at the NMA conference and the PSN conference. We had negotiated contracts with the NMA and the PSN. And so we are really looking forward to being back in Nigeria. George, tell us a little bit about your background and how you came into network marketing and what your specialty is.
Yeah, thank you, Darlene. So, yes, so fun to be on here with Africa. And, you know, matter of fact, I talked about this morning a little bit, but, you know, my passion and my heart for Africa probably began, would have been in Bible school for myself. I attended a Bible school called Christ for the Nations Institute here in Dallas, Texas. And so there was a number of Nigerians and Africans that attended the school. I ran the missions fellowship, and the late Benson Idahosa attended the school as well. And when I was able to take a missions trip during my second year in the UK, I ended up meeting him and sharing a stage with him in England, or Scotland, it would be. And so, you know, I did get to meet him, and, you know, he prayed for me because he was well known for many, many miracles and so forth. But you know, so I kind of blame him. I think something got in me that was for Africa. And then I had somebody else pray for me one time. Reinhard Bonnke, I met him. I actually helped him with his health at one time with an Ace Manning technology. And so he prayed for me. And so I can blame him too, because all of that happened before I ever put a foot in Africa. But since Darlene invited me to go with her, you know, we've been back pretty regularly. And so just very blessed, you know, to be a part of the community. One other thing I want to show, and this is part of what I would refer to as the mission that is our passion for Africa, at least for me. I've had people ask me, like, why are you going to Africa? There are many other countries that we could go to in the world right now. Rick has asked me this question in the past, you know, like, okay, why Africa? Because I do have, and I've built teams in many, many parts of the world. But this statistic that I want to show you is just average life expectancy. And let's just do Nigeria, since that's a 52.8 or 9, you know. If I were to change that, you know, Darlene's passionate. She's the one who's been, you know, kind of rope tying me into Africa since I met her. You know, she's from Canada. You can see the average life expectancy is closer to 82. And how does that make you feel? How does that make you feel when you see a statistic like that? That's not good. Let me show you one other thing. There is a term called a centenarian. a centenarian is somebody who lives, whoops, spelled wrong, over a century. And a century, 100 years. You know, we have 100 people on our call, 100 years. Now, 52 years is what we're showing there for average life expectancy. Centenarians live over 100 years. But one of the amazing things is, if you just notice this right here, is that the centenarians in a study showed similar glutathione levels as young people, and that there is a life that is better with glutathione, and there is a life without glutathione. And that is a significant motivator for why we are coming to Nigeria. The other thing too is my background is systems engineering. My degrees in management information systems. I've worked for a number of Fortune 500 companies, IBM, AT&T, even the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States. You know, people like the US dollar still in the world, you know, and we printed that money, you know, and so have had some big business experience. But, you know, there was a passion in my heart that wasn't being fulfilled in that type of an industry. And so I actually did go to the Bible school and got involved in faith-based ministry. And, you know, I ended up going from a very high income to a very low income, but a very, you know, passionate life that I was living, taking care of others, you know. And this industry, I call it micro business networking, because micro business is a sector of every economy. In the United States, it's a big sector of the economy. In Africa, it's a huge sector of the economy. Those are people that are in business for themselves. You know, they have very few employees, less than 5. You know, the sales revenue is for their own company is less than $1 million typically a year. And, you know, this is micro business. And I believe that our business model here is what you're joining when you become an independent business owner with Provizion Global is you become a micro business owner. But, you know, I have this little cell phone in front of me. This cell phone, although it's filled with microchips and, you know, all these small little components, you know, I can be on a Zoom call looking face to face with the president of any country in the world within moments. So micro connected to a network is massive. We are a micro business model. So we build our business model so it can be sustainable with your own activity in your own local community. But through the network, you can expand globally and take your reach across the world. And so that's how I define this business model, but it also causes me to build it differently. You know, we're not your classic MLM culture. We're not your classic MLM infrastructure. And we'll talk a little bit about that today. We have powerful infrastructure partners, you know, and I'm pleased to say these are lifelong friends of Mr. Rick Nelson here. The reason we have the strategic partnerships that we do is really the relationships that he has brought to the table. And so I just want to take a minute, and I'm wanting to show a little bit of our infrastructure as we go. But, you know, when Rick had the vision for this company, because it started with him, he reached out to me in February of 2020. I had been in Africa. I had brought another company to Africa. I brought 2 companies to Africa. The first one was a precursor glutathione technology. The second company, I would only go and help them if we could bring a bioavailable glutathione technology. And we were doing well. I had, you know, Darlene's African team was on my pay leg. So if that says anything, you know, there was a lot of volume happening there. I was sitting fat and happy, you know, and there was some change in management there. And I actually worked with Rick Nelson to see if he might be able to purchase that company, and had good relations, looked at that. That was decided not to go forward from the seller standpoint. And so 6 months later, he reached out to me and said, well, George, what about doing our own? And instead of him bringing a big financial partner, which he had previously in line, he said, what if you and I just did it? And so instead of us buying somebody else's problems, we build one the way we would want to from scratch. And I was kind of like, well, I'm not sure, if I want to do that. I'm doing really well, Rick, and I've got my financial services. And there was this little thing going on in China, people dropping over in the streets. I remember seeing it and thinking, I wonder what that's all about, and that was February of 2020. By April of 2020, my wife at the time was kind of kicking me out the door and saying, George, you need to go pray, fast, get whatever you need to find out if you're going to work with Rick on this company. She said, I think this might be what you were created for, because I come alive when I talk about these things differently than when I'm doing financial services or something. So I took some time out, prayed, fasted. By the end of the week, had what I needed to know that what we were doing was not just a good thing. In my world and understanding, it was a God thing. And so with that being established for me, reached out to Rick back and said, hey, Rick, I have what I need. I'm ready to do this. And flew out to a plane. I think there was like 3 people on the plane. Nobody was flying in April of 2020, and I had my mask on and my glutathione pumped in my body. And I went up and Rick and I began to put this company together. And on Rick's birthday, we decided we'd go ahead and do it. And so that was May of 2020. We opened the doors for friends and family at the election day, the U.S. election day, which will live in infamy, right? And so we opened the doors that day to start selling product to friends and family. We had a great first year. We had an even better second year. And now we're coming into a season, and you can know this. I had a non-compete with a company that I sold when I left that other company I'd been working with that was keeping me out of any countries that they were doing business in. And, that expires in June of this year. And so we have begun to ramp ourselves to Africa. So what I would say is this: I'm getting here as soon as I possibly could, if I was going to be an honest person. So here, is why we're coming now, why we haven't come sooner. But I will say this: we're very excited. We believe the grace of God is with us, and we're so pleased for each one of you that have come out today to take a little time to be with us. We've had wonderful experiences in Africa. I have left my cell phone in a taxi. I've left projectors in taxis, and every time it has been returned to me. And I just want to say, that doesn't necessarily happen in other countries and other places in the world. So while Africa has had some bad rep for its integrity, I will say that my experience has been, where sin abound, grace doth much more abound. There are some amazingly honest, righteous people, righteous by faith, living life, changing their continent, their nation. And we are excited to be a part of that with you. And so, Darlene, I'm going to get organized to show a little bit about our strategic partners, but that's kind of an orientation as to who we are. I've done well in networking. I've been in the top leaders of every company I've been involved in by God's grace. And, now we are here to do it together. I'm not in the field. Nobody in the corporate side can have a position in the field. How many of you know that ends up ugly, right? And so, we run a pretty squeaky clean shop, and we're excited to be coming.